riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
What's up, guys? Brad Chappell back with you at the Spring Show 2025. I got two of the OGs with me today, and we're going to talk about what would you do if your electronics went out. Todd, would you load the boat up?
No.
Okay. Do a little introduction to yourself. Probably don't need too much, but we'll hear it anyway.
Jerry Hancock, full-time guide on Lake Fort.
Yep.
So, been doing it a long time. Not quite as long as Todd, but I'm 24, 25 years in now.
That's a lot of crappie.
A lot of crappie, a lot of time on the water.
A lot of time on the water.
Yeah, a lot of sunburns, cold hands,
Yep.
tore up trolling motors, and
A lot of equipment.
yeah,
A lot of
still
experience,
rolling,
though.
still rolling.
A lot of
Yeah.
experience.
Todd Huckabee, Lake Eufaula guide. Been doing it a few years longer than Jerry, but
How many
So-
years, Todd?
this is 30.
30 years.
Yep.
Definitely a lot of crappie.
Yeah, especially when you look at our limits.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a whole
yeah,
lot of
Todd's
crappie.
caught a lot more than I have up there at Eufaula.
But I'm blessed. We're on a great lake.
Yep.
And
that's
so,
key.
you know, sometimes when people are asking me, like what we're getting ready to talk about,
Yeah.
if I was on a different lake, maybe I'd have a different answer. It's just that my lake is so full of fish that
Mm-hmm.
if I were to lose electronics, it wouldn't be the end
Wouldn't
all.
bother
Because,
you.
I mean, to be honest, I fished the first few years without any. We didn't have any.
Mm-hmm.
Even 2D graphs back then. It was flasher. That's when we would
I remember
troll,
Flasher.
troll and long line. You know, people always talk about, people ask me if I've ever trolled crankbaits. And I said, yeah, that's what I did pretty much at almost every tournament that I ever started out fishing. So I'd troll crankbaits to get hung up, to go back
find
to
it.
see what was there.
That
So-
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it worked. I won a few tournaments on stuff that I found trolling crankbaits. Because if you're trolling 8 of them out there and 4 of them get hung up, it's something pretty
Yeah.
good back
It's
there.
probably not a fish.
Right, so, yeah.
And you know, it's a great subject, and I think about you guys, and we went through the list, and this one stuck out really for you guys because all three of us were fishing before live scope and live forward-facing sonar really become a thing. And there's still a lot of people, even out here on this floor at Grizzly Jig today, that don't have forward-facing sonar. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that without that, and the technology is awesome. I mean, all three of us definitely agree that the technology is awesome. But it's not always, you don't have to have it to catch fish.
Nope.
I mean, you guys know it. You've done it before.
Well,
Same way.
I know cod. Well, we got it over 20 years without it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tool, and it's just, we've got a lot of tools on our boat.
Right.
I mean, if my trolling motor goes out, I'm loading up.
Yeah.
To be honest, now, if my power poles with paddles with power brakes goes out, I'm probably loading up.
Really?
If I can't drop poles on my lake the way the wind swirls through all the hills and stuff, I would load up. But as far as losing your forward-facing sonar, no, I wouldn't load up. We could still catch them. It has happened, unfortunately, when you use every day like we do. Those transducers, they've got a lifespan. And it's a lot shorter than people think when you're using it every day for
Daily.
the amount of hours. And so, you know, I've had it go out
Yeah.
multiple times in the last 6-7 years or however long I've been running it. And I'm not going to say that it's easy because I'm so used now to seeing how fish behave and
Right.
that type of deal, but they're still there and they can still be caught. You know, and there's some clients that would probably love if my live scope went out when they were on the boat, because some people just still don't enjoy it, and
Right.
and I get that. I mean,
Yep.
me and Jerry were kidding one day. When was that? Like 3 years ago. I called him. I said, "Dude, you're never gonna believe what I saw." I said, "I saw a squirrel today," because I hadn't seen one in like a year because
Right.
you're just staring at the screen. And
Yeah.
I was like, you know, it was fun because we were two-poling, and I was looking around and actually able to enjoy it.
Well, we're going to dive into this subject a little bit more even, and go to some of the ways that, you know, we caught fish prior to relying on live sonar. You know, some of the signs that, and there are signs on the water that let you know kind of what's going on out there. And I still utilize those same details, and I've got one particular that's really stuck in my mind right now that I'm going to tell you about. But there's different ways that, you know, we went about catching fish before the aid of live sonar. And like I said, I'm a fan of it. Don't get me wrong. But I still do. This past year in November and December, I'm going to say 90% of the trips that I did, we didn't utilize live sonar. We went back to trolling, you know, long line and jigs. And I can tell you we had great success and the people loved it as well. So, you know, and that being said, is we look for different things compared to what you do with live sonar, but there's enough tools without it that there's guys here right beside me, and myself included, they made a living without live sonar. But how would you go about now about, you know, would you fish standing timber, Jerry? What is, if you're said, hey, from this point forward, it is banned, it is against the law for you guys to use it, what would you rely on to catch fish with now?
On Lake Fork, I'd still fish a lot of standing timber.
Yeah.
I'd probably set a few more brush piles. I don't set many anymore because I don't have to.
Yeah.
But I would set some brush piles. I'd fish a lot of lay downs, you know, timber. So I would probably, in the wintertime, and this just like right now, I'd probably troll some more.
Yeah.
I'd probably break out my spider rig and stuff, because right now what we're seeing and we're going to see here in the next month on Fork is these fish aren't really relating to structure.
Yeah.
They're suspending shallow over open water. When I first got live scope the first year, I went up there and I found these fish doing that. I called Paul and I said, I know why trolling was so deadly.
Yeah.
Open water, suspended fish. And if you're just doing that with a single pole, that's hard to get on those fish. I would probably utilize on Fork, knowing what I know now, I'd utilize trolling a little bit more in the early spring, but I would be fishing standing timber, and I'd follow those fish to the bank. The ones that go to the bank, I'd probably early, like February, there's a lot of fish run up some creeks that warm up first.
Yeah.
I may even have to add another boat to my arsenal if I really was serious about some of these creeks, and get me a 18-foot aluminum that I could run up a creek and get up there, and you could get up there and have it to yourself. Now, them fish aren't touched, and we used to do that a lot. I'd fish shallow a lot more. I love fishing. My favorite way to catch a crappie is dropping in a bush or weeds in a foot or 2 foot of water, and them, especially them mean males, just jerk the tip off. I still do that on Fork. It's a hit and miss because the weather used to, you'd be on them and a cold front come, it'll push them fish back off. So what you'd have to do, and what we used to do, say they're not shallow, break out the trolling stuff, go back out, or go dip some deeper trees. Summertime, I'd have my milk run like I used to. 5 or 6 brush piles, some underwater boat arc trees, some standing trees. I had a little milk run every day. I tell people I don't catch any more fish now than I did, really.
Yeah.
I just catch them more efficiently and quicker.
Right.
And I can also focus on bigger fish,
Yeah.
Lavon, where I grew up guiding, I ran a trip this winter, had some customers I hadn't fished with in 10 years. They wanted to go over to the dam where we used to go in November and drag jigs.
Yeah.
And I said I hadn't been over there in about 5 years, but I went and rigged all my stuff. hooked my 2D sonar up like I did on the front, got over there. I made a couple passes and did some side scanning, down scanning. I seen where them fish were setting with 2D, and we rolled down that thing, dragging 2 jigs, had
Yep.
4 guys in the boat. We had a blast. So we had like 56 crappie, 3 or 4 big blues, caught a 20-pound blue, caught some bass. We caught a little everything.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm looking up there on the rocks.
There's
looking
actually
at
planes in the sky. I forgot that.
I enjoyed it. You know, I
Yeah.
fished a tournament this year. There's a guy put one on Tyler. He had a live scope division, non-live scope division. I pulled my live scope off, took my 2D, went down there, finished second to some locals that were shooting docks, dragging jigs on points and stuff. Open whatever, actually caught some open water fish with 2D. I can see my bait on 2D.
Oh, yeah. I can too.
You know, we all do that. Was the weight down? Sure, the weights were down, but I had so much fun doing that. And I'm blessed, you're blessed, Todd's blessed that we have that ability to do that and that knowledge. And, you know, nowadays, so many guys, and I'm not knocking anybody, but their idea of fishing is put it on 10 and cover as much water as you can and run into a fish. I like to know, why are these fish here at this time of year?
Right.
And when they leave here, where are they going to go?
Right.
And then from there, where are they going to go? Really pattern the fish. I really like that science of breaking all those
Oh, yeah.
little bitty. I do think it helps me
Details.
with forward-facing sonar, knowing that, having that knowledge. I think that separates me sometimes from some other guys, because when them fish leave, I know where they're going. A lot of these guys have to hunt and find them, take them a few days. So I love doing it. You know, we do a seminar we did one yesterday. One of the first things me and Todd's been asking several years, who has forward-facing sonar?
Yeah.
What do you think yesterday? 60% maybe yesterday? 50?
I'm gonna say it was like 80,
80?
That had it.
which is
Way
way,
up.
way up.
Yeah.
4
Because-
years ago, it was like 20%. And
Well-
we've seen that number going up. We want, you know, you can see it going up. So there's still a lot of people without it.
Oh, yeah.
And when we all do stuff and talk about live scope, that's all the time. And people, they're not that they're not interested, but it doesn't pertain to them, you know?
Right.
So I love this subject. We talk about it all the time. We joke about it all the time. I tell some of these other guys at Fort, like, I hope your live scope goes out, you know?
Yeah.
And you're going, and there's what Todd said. I'm going
Loading
home.
up. I'm loading
like,
up.
I'm not. I'm going to catch a limit, you
Yeah.
know? It's
It's been amazing me over the year that I had, and I've taken a lot of my clients with live scope, but it's gotten over the last year for me that they would say, hey, when can we go fishing without live scope? When can we go back to trolling? And I was like, you know, really my favorite time is this period, and that was at November, December. And those guys jumped on those dates probably just as quick as people would in the springtime.
oh yeah.
Because they wanted to, you know, just like we're sitting here talking to each other, relaxing, you know, live scope to me, and like I said, I'm a fan of it, is hunting. When you go to trolling and dipping timber or using slip bobbers, that's fishing. That's what fishing really was. Now it's involved, and like I said, we all utilize it. Don't get me wrong, but now it's hunting.
Yep.
There is a difference.
And as a guide, it's less guiding now and teaching.
Teaching, yeah.
Because if you've never seen it, I've got to spend first, depends on how fast you catch on, 30 minutes to an hour or two teaching you what we're doing.
Yeah.
And then once you start catching on a little bit, then you might actually start enjoying catching these fish. But for the most, it's like left, right, up, down. Don't do that. Quit doing
Yeah.
that. Shake. Don't shake it. You know.
Yeah.
And these customers, I've got some. They don't. They would rather not use it.
Yeah.
In the springtime,
I get it.
I've got guys that's been calling me, hey, when them fish get on the bank, call me. I said, well, I mean, I can't wait. I tell you, I did something last year, was talking about, and it took off, and it's going to blow up again this year. We were catching some of them big brim on Fort.
Yeah.
Taking a cork, little 6-7 foot rod, casting to these brim beds. We had a blast.
Yeah.
We go catch a limit crappie and go spend a couple hours doing that. I had guys saying, I could spend all day doing this.
Yeah.
Because it's like you said, it goes back to your childhood, watching that
Yep.
cork go under, and we had a blast doing that. You know, going back to, I remember, Todd does, the biggest shocking thing, the thing that bothered me the most when you talk about the technology, when side imaging came out.
That bothered more than Alaska?
Way more, because at that time I worked so hard at placing brush piles strategically all over the lake for different winds, different places, hiding them, not putting them in the likely spots.
Yeah.
And I worked at it. And if you wanted to find all them brush piles, you had to spend days idling around with 2D to stumble on one. And we've all done it in tournaments. How many? I mean, we've idled and idled and idled looking for brush piles and throw a buoy out because you had no GPS. Then you look up there and go, well, that tree lines up with that water tower. Now I know why it's here.
Yeah, it blew my mind.
Well, side imaging, I said, that guy can go in there and make one pass and find every brush pile I got. That made me mad. That scared me. I'm like, oh, now I got to work harder. Now I got to set more brush piles because they're going to find every one I got. I went 2 years when that technology come out before I got it. I was so against it. And then I went about 4 years when Spot Lock came out. To me, as a guide, the greatest tool at that time that ever been invented was Spot Lock. I can pull on a brush pile, hit it. I can go sit down and eat a sandwich now and let them fish. Used to, I had to hold that boat in that wind and keep it on that buoy. And I thought that was the greatest invention ever. And now I got it on my boat. I never use it. Never
I use it when
Spot
I
Lock.
go to the back of the boat.
If I go to the back of the boat, I hit it.
Yeah.
But as far as fishing, now I don't use it. It's
Right.
just, it changes so much, and I don't know what's coming next. I can't imagine, but there's something coming,
Oh yeah, always is.
you know. And
No, I've seen it.
Oh,
It's gonna get even more ridiculous, but it's there again. It's just still a tool.
yeah.
it's
and
a tool.
It's not always
I
necessary.
do believe that there is a big difference between a good fisherman and a good live scoper. We're seeing it in our industry big time, and there's guys that, you know, it would be very interesting. It's kind of like what's going on in the MLF, and that's a big eye opener.
Yep.
I mean, it was
Tell
kind
them,
of
tell them what you're talking about. We already talked about it before we recorded, but
well. So this last the MLF now, you've got 3 time periods.
Right.
You can use forward-facing sonar in 1 time period.
Don't you have to
And-
declare it before the day starts or something?
It's something like that, but it's just like, oh, that guy, the Wheeler King guy that's over there, the Alabama he was talking, and he was like, I think all y'all, you know, you just need to use it period 1 and go to the Waffle House for the rest of the day because, you know, these people forgot how to fish.
yeah.
I mean, they can use it for 1 period and they catch X amount, and then the next 2 periods they don't
And
even catch
scratching.
a tenth of that because they just forgot how to fish. But the guys that knew how to fish before
Yeah.
are gonna
Now they're becoming
Gonna-
relevant again. They can
they're
compete
gonna
now.
become dominant again now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know it's neat, and I know we're getting off topic here, but I love the fact that one of the tournament trails this year has got a tournament where you can still use forward-facing sonar, but your rod's got to be in a rod holder. You can't hold the rod.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got to troll.
That's awesome.
And I think that we need to get back into that because, you know, I was up at the Collinsville show a month ago, and there was a guy in there, and he told me something that kind of upset me. But he said, well, my son is, I can't remember, 11, 12. He said he's never caught a fish that he didn't see on the screen. And I was like, that's
sad.
pitiful.
Yeah, that's sad.
I mean,
It's not that kid's fault.
No.
It's
right,
all-
but I
you
mean,
know.
it loses some of the romance
Yeah.
of wandering.
Yeah, the excitement of I don't know exactly what it is. You could pop up and be nowadays. You know, as soon as we see fish, honestly, we can tell. All right, that's a catfish or that's a drum crappie. We can identify what the fish is before it ever bites,
But
know,
and size.
Yeah.
So earlier you were talking about that if if yours were to go out, and you were saying that you had something as far as listening to your
I see.
gut,
Yeah.
your nature.
Right.
I want to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, and I saw it this past week, and it was birds.
Yeah.
It was seagulls or these little white birds that are
Terns.
terns. They were diving down and eating shad, and it showed me two things. First off, it showed me where the bait was, but it also showed me that the bait was shallow.
Yeah.
So I knew right there, just by looking at a distance, I knew that that area down from me was holding a lot of bait, and it also showed me that a lot of bait was up shallow because they were diving down eating. So two things Mother Nature showed me from a distance that I really utilized for the past 20 years crappie fishing, that we would look for birds, especially in the beginning of a day, at a boat ramp. And sometimes they'll be all over the lake. But there were certain days that you would say, all right, I see a bunch of birds to the left 3 miles from here. It's just, you can see those little white birds from a distance. So that's the way we would go. We wouldn't look at anything else but just birds from a distance. And that told me, and we all know that those bait fish were getting fed upon by something. You know, more likely the birds were eating them, but more likely crappie was in the area eating them too. So that kind of gave me an area just by birds without any kind of electronics. Mother Nature showed me where I needed to start a lot of days.
Yep. And I'll tell you one that I relied on throughout my entire career, and it still holds true today. I see it every day, even with live scope. And that is fishing where you're most comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So this time of the year when it's cold, on my lake, if you go up into an area and let's say the wind's out of the north, if you get on a north bank and you've got that sun shining in there and you feel good because it's warmer right there, those fish in that little area are going to be more active than on the other bank where the wind's blowing in and it's cold. And it's because of a water temp difference of just a few degrees, but it makes the world of difference to a cold-blooded fish.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing, come summertime, you know, if it's 103 degrees at 10:30, which it can do in our area, I'm going to be somewhere where the wind's blowing. And
To cool it off a little.
And that's always where the most active fish are. And people don't pay attention to that anymore. But, you know, the one way you can run a guide trip real quick is to go against a calm bank in the summer when it's that hot and your clients are like, dude, this is miserable.
Especially in Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it gets really extra hot in Oklahoma.
Yep.
Going back to what you're talking about, the birds.
Yeah.
I've never said this publicly, but it's something that I use. I do similar to what you're doing. I pay attention. I'm a big proponent that these fish move up way sooner than we think.
Right.
I don't pay attention to the water temp as much. To me, it's length of days. As the days start getting longer, these fish know it's coming. Doesn't mean they're running to the bank, but so at Fork, we fish really deep. We catch
yeah,
a lot
that's
of
crazy.
fish 25 to 45 foot deep, and all the bait's out there. And it gets really cold, all the bait will pour into the creek channel and be on the bottom in 50-foot water. So, but I preach it all the time. I'm one of the first guys that run up north and start catching some fish. But one way I can tell, I don't care what the water temp is, that the fish have really started moving, is so our lake's full of cormorants and pelicans.
Yeah, ours are too.
And if you've ever seen those big flocks, I'm talking like they might cover 5 acres.
Yeah.
They're in certain parts of the lake. You see them feeding, going. West end of the lake, which I'm calling the north end, where it gets shallower up there. 2 weeks ago, I went up there. I never saw one bird or one shad. I caught one crappie. I don't know why he's lost up there, but I start watching those birds, and they start migrating that way. And when I see them west of that bridge, I know the crappie's made it that far, because the bait has made it that far.
Little telltale sign
And
there.
I've never said that publicly to anybody. Is it, you know, just something I pay attention to. When I drive, I can drive over that bridge and look and see 2 miles. I can see if there's them cormorants have made it back up there. I know it's time to start working my way that way, because that tells me. Because if the birds aren't up there, there's no bait.
Right.
If there's no bait, there's not many crappie.
Yeah.
So that's something I pay attention to. A lot of guys like, how do you know them fish made that move up there? Sometimes I don't even have to get out of my vehicle to tell you that there's fish that moved back up there just by noticing the activity on that end of the lake. So little things like that you learn over the years
yeah.
that you pay attention to, that it's a timing thing, you know, and it doesn't always have to do with the temperature, you know, it really doesn't. I think everybody's looking for 60-degree water.
Oh yeah.
You know,
And then sometimes 60, like I don't live and die by water temperature either.
no.
You know?
I've been saying for 30
Yeah.
years it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't live by it.
Anybody who wants to argue that, go to Canada. They got
Yeah.
crappie up there. Their water never gets to that perfect
Yep.
spawn temperature. And, you
I
know,
believe-
y'all talking about birds. Mine's gar,
Or,
Oh, gar.
100%. From spring on, if you pull into an area and you see them gar coming up, porpoising,
Yeah.
you're getting ready to sack them up.
You know, years ago, this is another thing that would tell me it was probably going to be a good bite. And this was a Oxbow Lake off the Mississippi River, and it's called Lake Lee. A lot of guys from Mississippi and Arkansas will know what I'm talking about. But literally in the summertime, if I pulled up to the boat ramp, and if I seen, and I don't know why, but it was very true, spoonbill catfish they would jump, come up, and you would see them jump. And I don't know why. You know, I know they're not really, say, feeding on the bait fish, but if I could pull up and see spoonbill jumping up, I knew the bite was going to be good that day. And it played so true.
He's talking about gar and you know, in the springtime we're fishing shallow water.
Yeah.
Fish are spawning up on the bank. When I start seeing those carp and gar up there, you know how they get up there splashing. Once they do that, it's
Yeah.
the crappie already done. If you get in there and you see all that, you can just make your move and get out of there and go
Tells you
somewhere
to
else.
leave it.
Tells you that the crappie have already done their thing.
Right?
They're going to come in after the crappie have spawned. So that's a telltale sign. You don't even have to fish that area. And if it's on the way north end of the lake, which generally warms up quicker, I start working my way south and stay a little bit ahead of those carp and gar. But, you know, that's something I've learned from wade fishing. I went in there, and once they get in there and start doing all that splashing and spawning, you're not catching no crappie. And if you think about it, you're like, well, I'm a little late. You know, shallow water fishing, one thing, you know, I always felt like the bigger crappie spawns a little bit for the small fish. And
I
if
agree.
you're in an area, especially in the spring shallow, and you're whacking crappie, and if those males start getting little to where you're barely catching ours is 10 inch, but when you're only catching 10 and 9 and 8 inch males, black males in that area,
It's that
it's
tail
over.
end.
Them little fish are up there, but
Yep.
the big fish have already spawned. So
Yep.
you start working your way to south. Generally for us, Todd, it's not south because the way his lake runs, but to cleaner water. That water warms up a little later, a little deeper areas of the lake, and those fish spawn a little bit later. So you just start following that wave of fish to a different area of the lake, you know. And that goes back. I don't need any electronics to know that stuff.
Yeah, all this we're talking about is very
And I
much
learned
without
all
it.
this stuff. I'm like Todd. My first guide boat had a flasher, and I remember when I got my first 5-inch. What was that, Piranha? Is that what
Oh,
it
yeah,
was?
that's
Black and white
that's
little
Hummingbird.
graph, and I thought
Mine was a pinpoint.
pinpoint. Yeah, oh yeah. I thought, oh, man,
Pinpoint.
I remember showing my dad because he'd only seen a flasher. Look at this. You see the fish? Look, there's a fish, actual fish on there.
Yeah,
I was
you had your fish symbols turned
yeah.
on.
Oh, yeah. Look, there's fish everywhere.
Every
They never
leaf you
bite.
saw was a fish.
I think I had an eagle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, Lawrence
the Eagles,
Eagle.
yeah.
That was, and I ran an Eagle for a long time. It was kind of a cheaper Lawrence.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, I still
Beginner.
got a flasher, Super 60. I was talking about that. My dad's old flasher, and that thing's probably been on 8 boats.
It's probably worth a lot of money just
You
for
know
the
what?
antique value.
Todd knows this. I love a flasher because you'd have that thing on. You can be running 50 mile an
Yeah.
hour down the lake, and you can see the depth. You
Yep.
know, you ran over a hump, you could see it. Now, unless you've got something in the hull of the boat, you
Right.
lose contact, you can't see anything. But that little flasher, hey, you could see bait on it, you could see fish on it.
Tell
You can
ano-
see your bait on it.
I'll tell
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Tell you another thing that a flasher was way better at than anything in tool live scope was seeing grass start to grow on the
Yep.
bottom.
Yep.
Huh.
Yep.
I did not know that.
If the little
Yep.
thing was thin, it was a hard bottom. When you started getting a real fluffy return, it meant you had grass. And you know, you could see your bait on that flasher.
Right.
And if you held it down there, it would be a solid mark right there. You could drop it down. We did it for striper fishing, for suspended fish. And back then, here we are talking about probably 30 years ago, we were trying to do
This
what
might
we're
be the
doing now.
old edition here.
We were trying to do
Yeah.
then what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Just like I used 2D, I'd see those spinning crappie, I could see my 2 jigs, I could see those lines, and I would raise and lower them to get them in there. But I was trying to live scope them before I even knew live
Right.
scope was ever going to be a thing.
Think about even going back just 10 years ago with 2D. I mean, if you pulled up to a brush pile or a stake bed and that sucker was super hot, you knew that there was a ton of fish in it. Because anybody out there that's listening that's ever used just a color 2D, not down scan, everybody's had this experience. And this used to be one of my number one questions. Is they're like, man, 2 days ago we pulled up to this brush pile and it was this big. And we caught the heck out of them. Man, we went back the next day, and I don't think that we was on the same brush
We
pile.
couldn't find the brush
because
pile.
it was only this big, and we couldn't hardly catch any fish. You know, you think beaver ate it, or I'm like, no. When it was this big, it had that many
Right.
crappie on it, and then you came back, and it was.
You had them in your cooler, and they left.
Right. I mean, it's.
Well, one thing about 2D, especially in the winter, I really love how I can see fish on the bottom with it. So much better than even live scope. If
Right.
they're sunk down, I can see that return. If I was on deep points and stuff and dragging jigs, man, I could get out there and I could say, all right, these fish are setting up at this break at 26 foot. I could see them on that way better than I
Downscan
can
too,
see them
huh?
down scan. I like it better than down scan personally. The reason I say that, I think I've looked at it for so many years
Oh,
and
yeah.
I understand every detail about it. So those tools are still, to me, underutilized a lot of times.
I think the main thing that is, and it's been said so many times, is about the details that we can see
Above water.
above water that, like I said, honestly, those were some that I could actually just see from the boat rim and kind of gave me an indication of what was going on the lake, whether I was going to have a good a bite or a bad one. And a lot of it played true. Of course, there were some days that, debunked some of it, but that's fishing for you in general. But, Jerry, I want to ask you something. I see a cap on your head.
Yep.
What does that mean there?
Crappie Fest.
Yeah.
So back last year, Crappie Fest will be our 11th annual on Lake Fork, March 29th. And it's 11th annual. It's the first year that myself and Travis Decker and we have got Cassandra Gann on board helping us.
We got a big gun there.
We hired a big gun. It's a big fish tournament. You weigh in one fish. It's got it's going to pay top 20. We've got golden tickets. There's exact weights. There's a lot of stuff. It's a one-day event at the big SRA facility where they hold the elites there on Fork. We're going to have live music, food, vendors. It's a fun tournament. Anybody's got a chance. You can fish off the bank. You can set a kayak, a dock, wade fish in the boat. You can have 5 people in the boat. It doesn't matter. Adults are $100. There's a $10,000 bonus for a 3-pound fish, which can be caught on Fork. And then on our kids division, 17 and under, it's free. There's also a $10,000 bonus on the kids side. If a kid catches a 3-pounder, it's going to pay $10,000. That's happened
nice.
before. That's Todd
really?
Froby's son caught a 3-pounder in a boat with his dad. His dad couldn't get it to bite. Todd's son dropped down there and caught it. He won a tackle box, and Todd missed out on $15,000.
I got to get some gas money from the son then.
So we've added that on the kids' side. We've got a lot of raffles. We've got a ton of guide trips and product to go in the raffles. We're also doing on the veterans. If you're a veteran, you sign up, you're going to get a raffle ticket when you check in. We have a huge veterans raffle just for the veterans, guide trips, product, cash money. For them, we're going to do something first responders. It's going to pay last place.
Yeah.
It's going to pay if you traveled the farthest. Oldest contestant. There's a lot of ways to win in Crappie Fest.
What about longest hair?
Longest hair? Well,
Levi would win.
But I was putting my money on Todd over for a minute.
It's a great time. It's a fun time. End of March on Fork. it's kind of like Grenada. Everybody wants
Yeah.
to go, or Sardis. So if you have any questions, you can get with me, myself, Travis Decker, Cassandra Gann. We have crappiefest.com, our website. It's got
Okay.
all the information on there.
What was the dates again?
March 29th, 2025. And
What
it's-
made you get into this side of things?
well,
You weren't expecting that one, I don't think.
I tell you how it happened. Crappie Anglers of Texas started this tournament 11 years ago. Jay Don and Rhonda Reeves,
Great people.
awesome people. They ran Crappie Fest, and they've done it for the first 10 years, pretty much on their own and their little team they put together. And I think it ran its course with them. Last year, I seen Jay Don make a post that Crappie Fest was available. They were done. Cat didn't want it back because it's a lot of work. I called him immediately. Me and Travis talked. Travis called me and said, "You see this?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Man, what about? I mean, what's going on?" So I called Jay Don. He told me. I said, "Give me 24 hours before you do anything." He said, "I've got a big name trying to buy it. I'm not going to say who it is, but everybody would know." And it wasn't Wally. So we'll leave him out. But me and Travis talked. Anyway, we worked out and we acquired it. Didn't want to go away. It's
Yeah.
such a great event. We didn't want to go away. And talking to Jay Don, he said, "Hey, we just scratched the surface with this thing. I think somebody get it." Then we bought it and we got it and we're like, what the heck we're going to do with it? Cassandra did the Brian Sires tournament in October.
Right.
Pines, one of the best tournaments I ever fished. She did such an amazing job. As soon as that tournament was over, at the banquet that night, I walked up to her and I said, "We got to talk." She's like, "I'm done with this. It's so much work." And
Right.
I said, put a bug in her head. She called me a few days later and said, "I'm in." We sat down and got her on board. She's just taking the ball and she's just done awesome with it. So it's really blowing up.
She's Mahomes in it.
Oh, she's awesome. And so it's a good event. We have the lake. We have the date. Last weekend in March every year, that's where it'll be, at the SRA there.
Sounds
We-
like it's really designed in my mind for, and it's necessary to have professional top-end tournaments. And,
Yep.
But this one's kind of geared for everybody that just wants
Everybody.
to have a good day in the
And
crappie fishing world.
we'll have professionals there. I tell people this is your chance down there. Like Kells, he's the bully running around our part of the country, and when it comes to tournaments, though I did beat him state championship this year. I hadn't let him live that down, but this is your chance to walk across the stage with Kel Ward and beat him.
Yeah.
Now, if you go fish a stringer tournament, you're probably not going to beat him. But one fish, you can beat him. Kel will be there. A lot of pros will be there. They love fishing it. Kel will have his son in the boat with him, probably trying to get his son on a big fish. So
I'm
it's,
gonna get
it's
that
a
$10,000
fun tournament. We have a good time hanging out. You want to win. There's a lot of money to be paid back. But when guys walk away and if they finish 19th, they're not mad. But if we walk away from a crappie match, something, we're probably a little upset. It's just that type of tournament.
Kind of like the Grizzly. I mean,
It's like, yeah.
you get the you meeting everybody out here, chilling out with them, talking.
Well, I've sold B&M poles at this show. I've
Yeah.
sold Shimano reel. We walk around and help everybody out here and talk. That's the great thing about this show. People walk up and say, "Hey, you work here? Sure. What do you need?" If we can't, we'll go find somebody that knows where it's at. And that's what this is. We're trying to get more kids, the kids side of it. We're also on the kids, we're giving some saving bonds. So instead of winning prizes, we got a bank we're working with. We will put a saving bond in their name. First place is going to be $2,000, and then it goes down from there. First, second's $1,000. That way, we'll put them in their name, just like the $10,000 bonus. And they turn 18, they'll have a pretty good little check waiting on them. It's going to be fun. A lot of work.
It's going to be challenging.
Way more work than I ever imagined.
Yeah.
That's why having Cassandra, she works at it full time, 24/7. Because I guide full time. I got a lot going on. Travis works a full time job, and then he's trying to fish, and we don't have the time to do what she's doing. Thank God we got her. Without her, it would never get to where it's going to get to. So we'd like to see everybody there. It's going to be a really fun time.
Mark them on the calendar.
March 29th. Yep. And We're trying to get back to ground roots a little bit, that's why this has been so much fun talking this old school stuff,
Yeah.
It's sad that we're having to talk about fishing like we call it old school, which
Yeah,
that's kinda
OG,
weird,
man.
yeah.
We're going to say OG fishing here.
But this subject we've been talking about today, it kind of excites me a little bit.
Yeah.
I start thinking about spring, like, man, I can't wait to catch a fish in a foot of water. Just that mean male, he's so mad, and just jerk the tip off your rod, and you don't know it's coming, so you actually shocks you. When's the last time you caught a fish and didn't know that bite was coming? We don't get that feeling no more.
Not enough.
It reminds me of bow hunting. I have them cameras that send that picture to my stand. It's taking
It's
a little
good
bit
and
away.
bad.
It's good. I know what bucks are coming in, but I also say, man, I don't have no
I ain't
good.
got nothing.
I'm
I
not
ain't
even
going
going to go hunting.
Yeah.
Used to, I'd go and be like, man, I hope a big one rolls in.
Yeah.
You always had that anticipation. Now I can say, I haven't had a shooter come in 6 weeks. Why am I even going?
I ain't going hunting.
So it's that deal. It's taken a little bit of that excitement out of my hunting
agree.
world. And I've thought about throwing those cameras away, but then I'm like, no, I love getting that ding ding, and I go, golly, look at that big one that rolled in.
Maybe you need to rotate it. Have 1 week with cameras.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can challenge Jerry on that. We'll
Yeah.
see how it comes about, if he can do it by next year at this time.
Yep.
Well, guys, always to have you. It's fun to have you on the show. Two buds of mine. Look forward to, especially the spring show here at Grizzly Jig. It's always an awesome time. Make sure you hit that like button. Turn your notifications on. Subscribe. You got Brad Chappell here.
Todd Huckabee.
Jerry Hancock.
Holla.
Thanks.
About a mile from Big Muddy River, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries